Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. It's episode 394. We've got a great special guest joining us. That's Jonathan Wald. And we normally record this at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. And you can watch it live on Facebook. Maybe the panelists will actually push it out and tell some of their followers to watch it. You never know.
What's Facebook?
Oh, exactly. What is Facebook? And we've got Outer Space episode here. We're going to go where no other WordPress show has gone before. So I'm going to ask, let's start with Jonathan. Jonathan, would you like to introduce yourself to the listeners and viewers?
Hi, my name is Jonathan Wold. I live in beautiful North Idaho. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
All right, that's great. And Sally, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Sally Getch, the WP fangirl and the human minion of two felines who make occasional appearances on the podcast.
We do, and we got, well, I don't know what we got. It looks like something out of UFO. It was a UK science fiction program, actually. We got Chris from Lift LMS.
My name's Chris Badgett. I'm the creator of Lifter LMS, where we help course builders and membership site builders build that on top of WordPress. You can find me at lifterlms.com, and I have a podcast for course creators called LMS Cast.
That's great. And I've got my friend John Locke. John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I'm John Locke. My business is Lockdown Design and SEO, and I do a daily YouTube channel with SEO tips for manufacturers.
And I've got Uncle Spence. He's joined the show again. Like to introduce yourself, Uncle?
I missed you at the family reunion, by the way.
Oh, I know, you always do.
Your mother and I grew up together, and she says hi. I'm Spencer Foreman, Jonathan Dunwood's uncle from WPLaunchify.com. And I am, other than Jonathan, maybe the elder statesman of this whole group, times two.
If you could speak to my mother, you got some real special powers. Right, she's been dead for about 10 years. Right, there we go. On to the first story. This is going to be emotional. We're setting over 90% of our premium plugins for free. Who wants to start this off? Come on, so I'm going to choose some. Oh, let's Spencer. Go on then, Spencer.
First of all, I want to say, if you don't know James Farmer, who is the founder of WPMU, you should meet him, because James Farmer is a polarizing figure in the WordPress community, but he goes beyond the WordPress community. But what I love about him, and I believe he's either from New Zealand or Australia originally, but he's definitely got the accent and the voice to go with it, is that he has withstood the confrontation head-to-head with Matt. He has withstood the confrontation with pissed off customers and happy customers. He has weathered every storm and yet not been found with a picture of him killing elephants in Africa. So he still has a customer base, despite being essentially kind of like Bob Parsons from GoDaddy, of people who knew the 90s and 2000s web. What I like about him is that clearly he has the big enough cojones to withstand a change of direction for this whole company when people in the comments are taking a dump in his coffee. They have all this stuff.
I wonder why.
They have all this stuff that they built a model around, which was leaving all the other controversies aside. This new model, which was about 10 years old, I remember when it happened, was like, we're going to build stuff essentially for people who want to do multi-site development, which is sort of like saying we want to build stuff for wooden wagon wheel manufacturing, because multi-site is so dead as to be not believed. But they built up this whole...
It just has extremely specialized uses.
Fine. So is heart surgery, but you can't make a living on it today.
Lots of people make a living on heart surgery. Thank you very much.
Not for the normal WordPress person. There was a time when multi-site looked like it was the way for you to build a business with all your clients using multi-sites and blah, blah, blah. Point is, they built this whole library of stuff. And then along the way, people subscribed, and now they've got them on a recurring revenue business. But the WordPress ecosystem changes, so now you've got a situation where the real money is in doing things which are like smush it. which is you basically create one big product that does a really great paint solution, which by the way, they, acquired from another company. And then everybody is happy to pay you for that. But then that means you don't have to support 197 different plugins all being updated every time WordPress updates. And since those are for WPMU and the other people are basically paying my $5 a month to stick around, they're all, rightfully so, expecting you're going to keep all 190 plugins up to date. And so I see this as James Farmer calls an audible. He's like, F it. I've already been through this car wash a million times. We're done with this business. We're going with the 2 or 3 core products that we make all our money on now. We're dumping all the rest of the stuff. And to look like a good guy, we're going to put it in GitHub so all you whiners can just take care of it yourself. And eventually the storm shall pass. And that's what will happen. And what I love is he's actually in there, unlike certain people with an M-A-T-T, he's actually in there face-to-face answering the naysayers to their face with no bullshit answers. The comments on this are priceless if you care about this stuff, because it really demonstrates how a real leader of a real company faces up to criticism. He just addresses it like a real person to a real person, like 2 neighbors fighting over the fence. It's not through some hyperbola and not some kind of like, hey, I'm so calm that my Zen can never be whatever. It's just, yeah, you have a right to be pissed, but tough shit for you because I got to run a business.
Yeah, right, Ed. You must be representing him, I reckon.
I just love his straight up, no bullshit honesty about
I have to get him on the show if he's brave enough.
He's a guy to listen to.
I have to say what I like best about this article is the postscript at the end. Update. Oops, I forgot. There's a whole bunch of multi-site plugins, almost all of them, in fact, that we're still using on Edublog. So they will continue to be updated in GitHub. And as we support everything to do with WordPress, supported here too.
Right.
Which amounts to, a fairly substantial degree of backtracking on the, we're just going to abandon all of these.
We're off you and we're off. What do you reckon, Chris? What do you reckon of this one?
I'm of 2 minds. One of them, it's just being an entrepreneur in public, and you throw a lot of things at the wall and you see what sticks. And there's only one way to find out in business what really works, which is to do it. And, some people stay really focused, and then some people are more like serial entrepreneurs trying a lot of different things. So I think that's all this is. And the industry, the ecosystem has evolved a lot. Personally, from my perspective, I couldn't, as a leader in a company, I couldn't be that scattered. Like, I mean, I have a bundle, I have a suite of products, but they all serve the same customer.
Well, they have some logical linkage, though, don't they?
Yeah, they're all very closely related and tie into, one main product.
Yeah, so that's it. But I mean, it is what it is. I don't think it's good or bad. Things change, and I think I'm glad that they're moving on and doubling down on what works. And I hope somebody steps up and perhaps takes over with full focus some of these projects that are just sitting there on GitHub that had some momentum. I noticed that they had something called CoursePress. I didn't even really realize they had an LMS.
I looked at that.
Yeah.
It was very problematic in the way it worked, because it didn't actually give you like post types that you could work with.
Is that a diplomatic way of saying it was a load of shit?
I wouldn't say that entirely, but because of what I needed to do with the LMS at the time that I was looking at it, it simply would not work for it. It had on the plus side, it was it was quite easy to set things up, and Chris's plugin hadn't quite hit the market yet at that point, so I wasn't considering it.
There we go. What do you reckon, Jonathan?
It's been about 7 years or so since I've been a customer. I was a customer back in the day. I echo.
Well, that says it all, really. 7 years ago.
Well, I admire. So on a personal level, I admire his willingness to put it out there and engage in the comments. That's something I struggle with. I just don't have comments. I don't like dealing with that. So I admire that about him. There's something to be said about the fact that he is still here and they're building this thing this many years later. I think says a lot about just how big WordPress is, that you can have people who don't like or don't want to have anything to do with your products, yet there's still plenty of people out there that you can serve.
Yeah, I got to tell you the truth. You know, I hope you come on the show. I just didn't like his plugins and I didn't like his business model. But there we go. That was just me. What do you reckon, John?
Well, obviously not just you.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good move. I mean, obviously, he's making these free because it's, as he outlined, the support hours and the active installs for some of these are more than it's just the math doesn't make sense because he's putting all this effort into things that are not the main driver of his business. So he's executing on the 80-20 and just getting rid of the stuff that is no longer viable and putting it on GitHub, as you mentioned, to where it's open source now. And, you know, those people can take care of it. I think it's a smart move. And I think we've seen other plugin companies do this before, where they just cut what is just taking up too much time and just stick to the hits.
Yeah.
Look at what WooCommerce did, by the way. ADP&R spoke to this after he left. But if you look what happened to WooCommerce, or the business, WooThemes, before WooCommerce really, is they made a big mistake. They fucked up. They said, lifetime blah, blah, blah for your, you know, lifetime membership. And then when it looked like this gigantic window of opportunity opened up, it's like, crap, we got to carry all these people with us. So they said, F it. You guys are done. We're going to, we're going to just tell you, sorry, we're kidding. The big difference is not that you have to do that, because sometimes you have to do that. The big difference is that when it's done, stand up to the crowd, take the tomatoes and the eggs in the face and be like, yeah, I shouldn't have said it. I fucked up. Ta-da, and move on, because he's already done this before. And the thing about this, I just keep pounding on.
Yeah, he's got a track record. In other words, he's got a track.
What I like about this is because it relates to what we talk about every week about the direction of WordPress and Jetpack and what's going on with like the whole thing coming together. And what I see here is that they went through the whole thing with the open source fiasco with Envato and the licensing fee and like, what can we charge? And then they went through the whole bullshit with like, what exactly are you getting when you do open source? And this is just part of how an ecosystem of, granola eating hippies and tie-dye shirts become a corporate type of a business. And you just have to make hard choices sometimes, but it's, it's exemplary in my mind how this guy does it, even though he is a polarizing figure.
Yeah, right. On to the next story. Oh,
well,
God.
if nobody was polarizing, what would we have to talk about on this show?
Exactly. God bless him. On to the next one, and this is even more confusing. Is it 50,000? Is it 25,000? What a shit show. Wix SEO is the best. What you brought this story to my attention, John. What did you think of this one?
Right. And in Slack, I originally put the wrong link because it was actually the contest from 2017.
Oh, it's gone down. Right.
So it's a brand new contest. Basically, it's a Wix hiring.
Oh, that says it all now. They're offering less money.
So, I mean, not only is Wix advertising every WordPress video, every web design video that you ever see on YouTube, not only are they doing that annoying bumper ads at the beginning, but now for the past couple of years, every year they do a contest where they crowdsource everybody else to do with this SEO contest. And it's basically hiring the crowd to do reputation management for them, which if you're unfamiliar with that, it's the whole idea with reputation management is to create, if you have a bad story, like Wix sucks for SEO, for example, then you want to have someone create enough positive stories about the thing to push all that down in the rankings to where only the positive stuff is at the top. So that's what this is. It's basically like a crowdsourced thing where it's, SEO, Wix SEO is actually good. And they make it very simple because you can either get on with a Wix site or, you can try and do it with a non-Wix site, but they don't care. As long as it gets more people to sign up on their platform and sell their, $10 a month crappy SEO tool, they don't care. So there you go.
Yeah, they are the kind of cockroaches of website development, aren't they?
Does anybody notice that this whole site is not even responsive? Has anybody even looked at this page on a Shrink your browser to less than full screen. The goddamn page isn't responsive, and it's 2019. How is it that this is even possible? This company exists.
Well, yes, the first time I looked at
You're going to give away $25,000 and they can't have a responsive fucking advertising page for this? Like, what is going on? Is there something wrong with my computer?
Nope.
Well, you have left
There's
the back.
something wrong with Wix, but we all knew that.
I'm going to bet on the SEO-hero.tech winning. I'm going to bet on them. They're number 2 right now, and they have their own product.
I'm on a keto diet this morning. I'm really energized. Sorry.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell. I don't know where to take. Sally, what do you reckon?
I think the fact that they're holding this contest is, a strong demonstration of the fact that, one, obviously the previous one didn't work that well for covering up all of the Wix SEO sucks stories.
There's plenty of them.
Yes. No. Number 2, their approach does seem to be, rather than make our product better, let's spend a lot of money on things like advertising or prizes or find some other way to do it. And the thing is, Wix is fine for some people, because if what you want is basically, a Yellow Pages ad for your business on the web, and you've got, at most 5 pages, and you update it once a year, and you could recreate it from memory if it was lost forever, go ahead and use Wix. Because WordPress is probably overkill. But that they seem to be so desperate to find ways to fight a well-deserved bad rap, other than actually fixing the problem.
Well, they're VC, they're Israeli company, they're VC backed, they're burning through a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money on advertising. It depends whether, I think things are, who knows? What do you reckon, Chris?
I think it's cool and fun to do a challenge. I noticed they're not ranked number 1 for the phrase Wix SEO. There's another company that is. It reminds me of, if you followed online business for a while, you're probably familiar with Pat Flynn. And he did something a long time ago called the, what was it? It was a challenge, a niche, they called it a niche site duel. Mm-hmm. And basically he went up against somebody else to build a passive income niche site. And I think they did it in the security guard training niche, just really weird, random niche. And to this day, you still see on his income reports, he's making money off of that security guard training thing or whatever. But I think it's fun to do a challenge. I think it is but I don't know. Wix and WordPress is very interesting. WordPress spends so little on advertising compared to Wix. It's almost mind blowing.
When are you going to do your Lift LMS challenge against Kajabi then?
What's that?
When are you doing your Lift LMS challenge against Kajabi?
I've thought about it. I've thought about doing something like that, but I'd rather do like a course creator challenge, just to stop talking about features and this and that, and just go out there and
go out and build a course and see what is actually going to work for you.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of thoughts on this. Are any of you guys familiar with Wix's Corbid platform?
No, I'm not. What about this?
Wix.com/Corbid. It's a accelerated development of web applications, they call it. And when you spend a little bit of time looking at Wix, and I haven't done very much of this, it seems clear to me, if you think about this idea of like WordPress as an operating system for the web, Wix is trying to do that. Like they're trying to, from my limited perspective, initial look at this, they have all these different pieces and they're trying to say, you can build all the things on us. And when you look at Corbid, for instance, it says things like, we're an open platform. They actually have an online IDE. They have all these things that are like built into it. Like you can do all the building here, and they're trying to get agencies signed up. And when I look at this, I think one of the factors, and I don't know how much, but one of the factors is people with money are looking for places to put it and don't see how to put it into WordPress.
Yeah.
So they're looking for what are the good bets, and Wix is say, hey, we're here, we're doing this thing. Look, we're growing. And for me, I look at it and like, well, I don't like, well, for a number of different reasons, I think it's temporary. It's not a, I mean, they'll always probably have something if you put enough money.
I don't know. They really give me, Jonathan, I think you made an excellent point there. It just gives me the impression of a VC company that's got a lot of money, but so they've got a lot of runway, but they're really burning it through. They're really paying a lot of money to get new customers.
Look at their services. They have the logo maker, online store, Wix bookings, domains, mailboxes, web hosting, enterprise.
They're like the Zoho of web design. It's all over the place, isn't it? If you want to go down that route, I think Squarespace is where I would send you. Wouldn't be to Wix, but but here we go. What do you reckon, Spencer?
Squarespace also spends a lot of advertising money.
True.
When an asteroid allegedly hit the planet a long time ago, the dinosaurs gave way to small mammals. And in the same way, we now live in 2019. Wix and Weebly need to give way to Squarespace and WordPress because
did you have to swear?
The thing that they're doing here, which is such an oxymoron.
I'm such a snob, but no, I'm such an English snob, but no.
This is an oxymoron because their platform is primarily a website builder. Now, I'm an SEO professional. First of all, what does SEO have to do with Wix at all? There's almost nothing with what their tool does that has to do with SEO. I mean, you put the pixels on the page, you put the headers, you put the meta text, blah, blah, blah. The SEO will be picked up by the scrapers regardless of what you use to build.
Yeah, I have no idea why they're so bad. Ask John,
This is just one of those examples of they're trying to find some reason to exist. And instead of focusing on the actual product or the tool or becoming a niche site that does some specific thing that they're actually good at, they're just throwing a bunch of, it's like having, a million balloons at an inauguration to get attention to yourself, and then you don't actually have anything politically you're going to do for your job. So I just find this amazing. The fact that it's not responsive, though, to me is sort of like, that should say everything to a professional SEO person who comes to this page like, really? Like, you get the toilet paper on your shoe there, guys.
But no, I think, it's kind of linked to the first story, isn't it, in a way? Because they go down the same route as old WPMUDEV,
no, there's a difference because WPMU has actually found a place where they're making money. And so they're saying, we're going there because Smush It is really an awesome plugin. I mean, it's not the only one. There's Tiny PNG and there's a couple others that I've used. But Smush It is actually a really good plugin and it's worth the money for paying the premium. So they're saying, we evolved like the rest of you. We're not still watching Seinfeld and Friends episodes. We're all like 50 years old now. Let's get on with it. Instead of pretending like Wix and Weebly are still relevant in a world where you've got Squarespace or WordPress with all the visual page builders. And also SEO is different. Of course, John will attest to that. Like you can't do crazy stuff today that was like gray hat and get away with it. It's irrelevant. There's 1 trillion websites being indexed every 5 seconds. So this whole thing is pointless. Why did this come into the show? What's wrong with you, Jonathan?
It's there precisely because he knew it would make you spout off, Spencer.
Exactly. There you go. I thought it was worth discussing. There we go. We're having our break, folks. We'll be back. We've got some other great stories. The panel seems energized. Chris seems thoughtful. Spencer's had too much. Jonathan looks a little bit confused.
He's wondering why he got into this.
Exactly. He looks better than some of the other special guests.
JW and I have talked at length, and JW is capable of having very long conversations where he gets me off on a rant. So
there you go. Well, I look forward to
familiar with me going blah blah blah.
Well, we'll be back in a few moments, folks. We're coming back. We've had a good beginning of the show. But before we go into one of our other great stories this week, I want to discuss one of my great sponsors, and that's WP Fusion. What does WP Fusion do, you might ask, my beloved listeners and viewers? Well, if you've got WordPress, not Wix, and you should have WordPress, and you've got your CRM, like Active Campaign Drip, There's a number of them. And you want to put the communication, you want to do this automation, this marketing automation, which is the buzzword of 2019. You need WP Fusion. So I suggest you go over to their website, look at their amazing product and their packages. And I've got better news. If you use the coupon code WP-Tonic, all uppercase, you get 25% off any of their packages. And that is offered exclusively to only you listeners and viewers. So go over there and get a good bargain. So on to the next story. And this is Uncle Spencer what put this in. WordPress hosting performance benchmarks 2019. So Spencer, why did you think this one was of some interest?
Okay. Today, there's a lot of people that, write these sort of like fluffy cotton candy blog articles where they just list 5 things, try to stuff it with words and say, ta-da. This is like Consumer Reports level of analysis. I love it. It's very objective. It's very detailed. There's no agenda here, right? The details.
I had a quick look at it. I found it totally confused.
You don't have to worry. All you need to do is this.
It's very dense, but you can skip to the
Just
results.
go to the price point that you want to pay, 25 to 50, 50 to 100, 100, whatever. And just go to the conclusions, because the bottom line is 2 big takeaways from this, besides the preface, which I'm saying is this is a really well done analysis. This is the kind of stuff that if somebody really just wants to know what is really the difference in managed hosting, right? We talk about this every week, sponsors or none. I'm saying that this gives you factual details that prove a point. It's a commodity fucking D item. I'm swearing like crazy. It's the ketones.
Here's my influence.
It's because Morton isn't here, so somebody has to fill in.
It's a commodity item today. You are either a cloud hosting, well-done platform with good support, or you are not. But what is also interesting to me is that you can factually go look and pick your favorite. And now you can see that for the things that are important to you on whichever level of price you want to pay, that there are certain hosts that are doing the things, and I like to say I didn't invent them or I didn't make them a star, but I've suggested in past shows how we put our clients not on WP Engine or Kinsta, or any of the other ones. We just put them on Cloudways, because Cloudways is essentially a wholesaler.
Yeah, and I've had some clients with Cloudflares, and their support is.
Yes, one of the things that surprised me is one of the people.
It is a wholesale environment.
Do you ever go at my beloved sponsor, Kinsta?
It is a wholesale.
How dare you?
Kinsta comes off very well in this.
You are making stuff up. It doesn't matter. Kinsta has a great level of support. It's a fine.
Silence. You've been horrible to my sponsor.
Are you telling me that this show is biased? Because Jack Arturo at
They're giving me money, mate. They're giving me money. Unlike a lot of people in the WordPress community, they won't be mentioned. At least they sponsored me for 2 years.
I don't really think that they would mind, being honest, because they show up as very favorable in the tables too. That's the point.
They come off very well. There's nothing in this to insult Kinsta.
Exactly. Let me just finish my point. It is a relationship business where everybody has the same commodity. That's the point. The point is there is no difference between, cloud-based hosting done on any of the major providers, AWS, Google, Vultr, and so forth. It's just either you offer that or you don't. And the difference is how do you price it and what's the relationship with your customer? That's it. And for most people, a couple weeks ago, we had this argument. I said for most people, they should rely upon their WordPress expert to do all of their site stuff, because the wholesaler is going to give the WordPress expert basically all the things that are necessary, and it's never really going to break. So it's bullshit for WP Engine to keep selling premium managed hosting as a service, when even in this test, if you look at the archives, people are pissed off that just doesn't happen. WP Engine I pick on because they keep injecting themselves into your use of the host with varnish and caching and all this stuff, whereas these other ones get out of the way and they're really good support, and that's where Kinsta is a good company.
All of these hosts have caching services. Now, some of them are less intrusive, but they're all in there.
They don't impose them on you. For example, Cloudways does not set the settings on varnish or cache or anything. You can turn it on and off selectively, and it doesn't come on by default. And that's the difference. They're not saying
You can
take
turn it off in
fix
WP
it.
Engine.
You don't have to fix it. Like Windows 95, you had to spend the first day taking all the crap out of your home screen, right? That's different than Mac, where it was just like, okay, I paid more, but I got a computer. I'm saying in today's world, when you buy a smartphone, nobody jams stuff on you except for one company, Google, Google phone. But everybody else in the Android system.
Oh yeah, well I
Google
bought
phone.
my Android phone from Amazon.
Well, what are they shoving there?
Stuff
Oh,
in it.
you got a new phone. You got smartphone.
I have an actual for about.
Oh, you never said that. You were in the dark ages for a long time.
Yes,
weren't you?
no, for about a month. I now
God, yeah,
actually have a smartphone.
Blimey, she's
I
got-
have discovered Instagram and the fact that the purpose of Instagram is cats. So mine
Does it have the hair filter on the back of that because of the high ventilation?
You kept that very secret, actually.
there's no fans in your phone, hon.
What, go on, Jonathan? What did you reckon upon this article?
So hosting's fascinating for a lot of reasons. It's I've been thinking about different topics to sort of dig into next, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes in hosting in the near future. And a lot of folks in this space are kind of just holding on to a dying model. Like there's a lot about it that works, right? You have paying customers, so they will continue to pay until there's a reason for them not to, an impetus to move, something goes wrong, et cetera. But ultimately, it's, as Spencer's describing, it's increasingly a commodity, the actual like hosting of WordPress as a service.
Well, it depends with what you mean by a commodity. I think what the way I would put it, Jonathan, is yes, that most of them are using a combination of cloud hosting services, either from Google, Amazon Web Services, or wherever, and they either have one particular one, like Kingston uses Google, but then they sell their interface, their support, and some other functionality, or they might aim at a specific niche or industry. You know, you've got Liquid Web that tries to make out that they're the bee's knees if you've got WooCommerce, that type of thing.
One thought, I think this space is really important. So WordPress as a service is the equivalent, if you think about WordPress as an operating system, it's like the hardware that's running it, right? So this is how we get access to WordPress. We can do it ourselves, and a lot of us do. One of the things I've loved lately is using SpinUp WP for my own like basic sites where it's just AWS or in my case, DigitalOcean in the background, and it's an interface to it. But there are times where you're like, hey, I want to know that someone's like, who am I going to buy the hardware from, for instance? This is the hardware equivalent, is this WordPress as a service stuff. So I think it's really, really important. And I think what we're going to see is you'll definitely see these hosts focusing on particular verticals where they're going to do more bundling and value adds that are focused on the needs of a given vertical. And I think you're just going to see a lot of changes over time.
Well, even the bigger players, haven't they? You know, GoDaddy, bless their little hearts. You know, they went on a spending spree buying certain plugins, and you know, to try and build up some differential which doesn't really fundamentally exist. Good luck to them, but they've got the money. They've got enormous pockets. What do you reckon, Chris?
I use Pagely, and I didn't see him on here. I was hoping to see him on.
Oh, thank God!
They've
Thank God,
declined
Matt's not on today.
They mentioned in
Sorry,
the article about, you know, there's some people who aren't here because either, you know, if they were a larger company, you know, they may have said they didn't want to participate or blah blah blah. So I'm not sure why, because yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Pagely, but most of my clients don't fall into their, you know, their current.
Can I just say something quickly, Sally? What really pissed me off about WP Engine, you know, poor old, no, Pagely, a great company, and then that bloody WP Engine, they bought, you know, they bought adverts. So when you put Pagely in, up come on number. I thought to myself, well, I'll give it.
Everybody does that against.
Yeah, but it's just a small
competitors.
player, and I thought, give them a break.
Pagely is doing just fine. Thank you very much. I mean, yeah, maybe that was, you know, a little sharp-edged. I'm fairly certain that Josh Strebel is not a big fan of WP Engine to this day. But, you know, they've chosen different ways to go forward as companies, and they're both doing fine.
Yeah.
I just want to say that this is a really well done site, and there are affiliate links in here on reviewsignal.com, but so many comparison posts are really light and fluffy.
Oh, they're totally
quite
paid
frankly
off, most of them.
inaccurate.
This one at least shows you here's how we did it, why we did it, at what we did. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think with regards to Spence's commodity idea, what it might be most important for the more general public to know is which hosts to avoid. Because, in terms of features and services, a lot of the managed companies, you know, you're going to be fine with any of them. But, you know, you find clients who have ended up on hosting that is completely unsuited for WordPress.
Yeah. Do you know, when you look at the tables, okay, and Sally's saying this the opposite way, but I'm going to say, when you look at the tables of all the testing, all the results are like 99.9, A, 99.6, 99, 100. There's like, there's nothing left to be done here, people. They've figured this one out. So now it's just exactly, who do you want to be your boyfriend or girlfriend to give you this thing that's essentially exactly the same from everybody, other than, and I did have one of these clients this week, there are still these little mom and pop operating on like a OS 9 server in somebody's closet hosting companies. And then you find them when the client comes to you and you're like, can you change your A record? And they're like, oh, I put in a ticket. It's been 6 weeks now. I'm waiting for the person to come back from Jamaica to answer my ticket. I'm like, who's hosting your site? Like, the only way you know there's something wrong is when somebody's on an outlier rather than on the main thing. And JW is saying what I think we discussed privately and we discussed here publicly, is that the market is compressing. Just like in the CRM world, there's a competition between 30 companies now. Who's going to win that game? There's can't be 30 of them forever. This will be like, some people do a James Farmer. They'll be like, well, kind of like Pagely. They'll be, we're going to go off and handle corporate clients that are high ticket clients because we'll specialize on 10 people that are great clients instead of 1,000 slackers. That's what capitalism does best. And in the WordPress ecosystem, boys and girls, that is the most exciting opportunity that I see here, is that there are so many things that are moving around now that just because there wasn't an opportunity yesterday, there will be one today. But don't rest on your laurels thinking that the thing you did yesterday is going to continue to be, you know, usable or popular. It's just not. And this is, you know, for all those reasons, I think the meat and potatoes of it, it's zero cost to start a high-end business. The stuff that these companies are doing now for $25 a month was $2,500 to $25,000 a decade ago or 5 years ago. And now it's just like giveaway. So it's exciting times.
There we go. Exciting time. We live in interesting times.
They're interesting times, John.
Listen, interesting times. All right. On to, written by one of our great special guests. He wrote this. Ego-stem plugins, the next big opportunities in WordPress. So, Jonathan, can you give us a quick synopsis, but keep it brief, will you, Jonathan? So, about why you wrote this.
One more thing on hosting real quick.
All right.
The floor. I'm putting together, I'm a co-organizer for a small event for people in the hosting space right around Camp Europe. So if anyone's curious, it's hostcamp.org. Kevin, who from Review Signal, is doing a discussion on ethics in WordPress hosting at the event. So I'm a lot of work yet to do. This is my first time being involved in an event, and I got.
Well, you have to come back and push it a bit more. You're most welcome. Sounds interesting. Yeah. All right.
A lot to say about hosting once this is done. I'm excited about getting a lot of the.
Yeah, but I thought you would agree with Uncle Spencer. It's all done and finished with.
I'm going to be crashing his event, by the way. I told him I can't come, but I'm going to be crashing it. Just
all right, there we go.
Sorry. Cool. So the backstory for this was doing some research on SaaS companies, and I started out with this basic idea. I went through, all right, I'm going to look at a bunch of SaaS companies, and started with this idea that I think they should be creating plugins in WordPress. And they should be investing in WordPress under this concept of WordPress as an operating system. As I started to go through these companies one by one, I started out with 100 of them. I realized that my initial thought of that they should all have a plugin didn't really make sense. I still operated from this basis of they should have some kind of connection to WordPress. But I'm like, it doesn't make sense for every single one of these companies to develop their own plugin. And out of that, I developed the concept of an ecosystem plugin. And this basic idea, it's got a couple of parts. You take a given audience, that's where you start. You identify, the problems that you're solving for them. You figure out the way to simplify decisions for them, bring them the integrations they need, and put together the partnerships that kind of make sense to serve that audience effectively. It's not a new concept, and a lot of people are doing it in different ways, but I see a lot of opportunity to do it a lot better in WordPress, and that's where I think a lot of the next opportunities are.
So what do you reckon about this, Chris? Because, the SaaS model using WordPress hasn't been that. A lot of people have tried it and they haven't really got anywhere. I don't think Jonathan is really pushing that idea, really. It's more of a hybrid. What do you reckon, Chris?
I think it's really solid. And so in many ways, the tool I have, Lifter LMS, is an ecosystem plugin. It's for the course creator audience. We have add-ons that integrate with different things like MailChimp or form plugins, or there's other ones, new ones that we're building. And then we have an impact or an influence on that community, the course creator community. And I think there's a lot of discussion in WordPress around, everything's already been done before. But in some ways, I'm kind of jealous of the WPMU guys. I actually see a lot of opportunity where a lot of things can be developed. It all definitely has not been done. And the trap that I see developers fall into is they take a development first approach and they build utilities instead of building platforms.
Yep.
And it's really easy for them to go to the target market they understand, which is other developers, freelancers, agency owners, and not the broader spectrum of society. It's always funny, if you're in the WordPress community, you go to a party outside of WordPress, and there's a lot of people who haven't even heard of WordPress. They're in all these other industries that would benefit by having a platform. And if you just think of like a 10,000 or 5,000 person town and you drive down Main Street, there's all these types of businesses in different audiences that have different business problems. And there's these niches of business niches are all over the world. There's huge opportunity here, and you can disrupt in WordPress in a way that you can undercut the SaaS model and the metered pricing model and build a viable business. I see nothing but opportunity there. I love the I love the article that Jonathan wrote and the concept of ecosystem plugins. I hope it inspires some rising entrepreneurs out there to just reach out and grab that opportunity.
One of the things I've really enjoyed is that I have had people reach out and like, hey, we have this idea or have this concept. And I think there's so much opportunity for entrepreneurs to go in and say, hey, let's start with an audience. And in WordPress, it's all about that accessibility. You can pull together pieces and it's already something people are familiar with. So I'm excited.
What do you reckon, John? Do you reckon there's something to Jonathan's article? Because I think there is, but it's like looking in the fog. I'm not got a totally clear picture myself, really.
No, I think I have my head wrapped around what he's saying, and like Chris mentioned, like Lifter is more a ecosystem plugin. It's not just making like little plugins that do one thing, but it's more about creating an ecosystem that interconnects with all the different things that apply to that specific problem that you're trying to solve. In Chris's example, he's got a LMS plugin, but it's also an ecosystem where it solves all the problems of having a course. And like Jonathan mentioned in his article, having things that interconnect other pieces of that puzzle that you might need to use to make this system work, that's kind of key. Instead of just being one component, it's delivering the whole platform. And I think there is a big opportunity for entrepreneurs in the WordPress space or in the development space.
I was going to ask Chris.
So isn't this the basic idea behind Jetpack?
Kinda.
They certainly have a lot of the pieces of it. I think the thing that I've noticed recurringly as I've talked to some of these companies doing these things is that people are missing the basics. They're not clear on who the audience is and what problem they're solving. So they
That's
have
a big issue for developers. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, yeah. Like I've talked to companies who like who brought me in and say, hey, look at what we're doing. And I'm like, well, which audience are you serving? Well, it's this, this, and this. Like, well, that's problematic because they have very different needs and problems. And so I find people who have a lot of the pieces, and this is where I think there's so much opportunity, because someone will look at a company and say, oh, well, they're doing it. Yeah, but they don't really know who their audience is. And when you know who your audience is and you really focus on the problems that they have and you really dig into that, which is not trivial. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, yeah, I do that. I talk to my customers. Do you really? Do you really know? So I think a lot of the companies that I've looked at fall into that category of they have the pieces, but they don't really know why they're as successful as they have been. And they just keep developing and building new things and they don't have a clear sense of direction.
Before I throw it over to Uncle Spence, Chris, I just want to ask you this. You know, you can't worry about the competition endlessly, but obviously you keep an eye on it. Who do you really see as your main competition? Is it other plugins in the WordPress ecosystem, or is it the leading SaaS competitors, Kajabi, Teachable, Learnable? Are you really about confronting them and being a better proposition?
I would say neither. My biggest competitor is distance, or my biggest challenge is distance from a connection to the audience. I'm a non-technical co-founder and I'm a course creator myself. So I focus on the customer, not the competition. And that's the approach I've used to build around an audience, not, you know, some kind of feature parity with what else is going on out there. So I think that, you know, within WordPress, I think it's good to have at least two prominent people serving the same audience, perhaps competing in that ecosystem to drive innovation. I think that's really healthy. And then the conversation of WordPress versus hosted SaaS, it's an interesting area because we get a lot of people coming out of Teachable, out of Thinkific, out of Kajabi because they got limited, they got boxed in, and they didn't have the ecosystem, they didn't have the extensibility, and they didn't have the design and functionality freedom. And this is what makes, and the ownership, this is what makes WordPress compete as an ecosystem against closed SaaS models. So I'm sorry, I didn't really answer your question. I just have
but the only reason I bring it up is that I totally agree with you. But if you go to any of the major Facebook discussion groups, you get a constant, I used to use WordPress, I don't now, I use Kajabi, or I recommend Kajabi, or you don't want to use WordPress. Where do you think that's coming from? Or are they biased, maybe sponsored, actually?
I think it's part of it's a reputation problem of like people just bricking their sites or having a bad experience with WordPress. And then they're like, forget that, I'm out of here. The opposite can happen. Like WordPress is not necessarily easy to use, especially with a more complex implementation. And
having decent hosting might help, won't it?
Yeah. So it's not for everybody. I don't think, like, there's a place for the ecosystem, and then there's a place for like one trick pony. I need a SaaS for invoicing or whatever. Yeah, they're not the same. And this issue I think is really fascinating because it's a hard thing to have a conversation about with a particular audience. They're like, what makes you different? And if they have no idea what SaaS is or WordPress is, and to really get into it, it turns into a big discussion I've never been able to pull off succinctly.
Yeah, I do. What do you reckon, Uncle Spencer?
JW and I talked about this at length. In a previous conversation, what I take from his point is going to be part premonition, part a prediction, and part a reality check. And that is that if we take the concept that WordPress as an ecosystem is sort of like the earth, right now there's one player I can refer to who, again, you will find me in business relationship with. That is WP Fusion, Jack Arturo. His plugin is unique from all others because what it does best, in addition to the other things, is it allows you to take your choice of third-party SaaS third-party SaaS type CRMs, you know, MailChimp, Entreport, Drip, ActiveCampaign, Infusionsoft, whatever, and connect them as an accessory to the WordPress world. Now, the concept is important
Which
because
puts you in the integration category that Jonathan wrote about.
no, but hear out where this is going. The world where the people live of WordPress is the metaphor. All those plugins that everybody could write or use are kind of like, you know, islands or countries, but the people are all on the planet. His success with that plugin, the reason it got me involved, got so exciting for me, was because now you can bypass all the other whatever old school ways that a CRM was used and use it as an accessory for your purpose to that world. My prediction, my premonition is that there are companies out there who have outstanding products who haven't yet thought of, what if we actually orient our product as an accessory for WordPress so that it works at the core level with the WordPress user table, with WooCommerce, with all the other key things. If that product, like take some, you know, Kodak, or, you know, they're out of business, but like some photographic company makes a product that's specifically to work with all the other platform stuff that already exists in WordPress. And some developer either builds the plugin or maybe it's the company natively. The point is, all of a sudden, that's like a native integration with what's already there. Now a person who's already on WordPress or thinking of using WordPress doesn't have to worry like, oh my, oh bother, where do I go there or do I go here? You just go to the planet and now you can use this accessory. And I think that is what I see as the future. The development energy is going to go into, have we agreed yet at 30 or 40 or 50 or 60% penetration that we could just use WordPress as the Velcro and everybody just makes a dart that sticks to that dartboard? Because once that happens, it eliminates all the other conversations about like, are you going to be locked into my Mindvalley online yoga thing? Or can we just use Lifter LMS and then Mindvalley does the scheduling part best or takes the money part? Because everything is then using this Velcro or this little doodad, a USB connector. Once the third-party companies, through a developer or otherwise, all plug into WordPress natively, amazing shit can happen. And that's what my takeaway was from this. And before his change of venue, I thought that was an interesting conversation. I hope he pursues this, JW. I hope you pursue this.
We have to pursue this. You know, obviously, I think you did a good job there. The only thing is you know, how, yeah. I think we leave it there. Let's go on our tip review of the week. Mine is, see, I'm with Zoom, but I want to push to Facebook and to YouTube. So I'm looking for a live stream, but then I'm going to try and work out if I can get it to work with Zoomy. And I've been looking at one called Caster. And that's at Caster.io, and they seem to provide the best functionality price to functionality model of what I'm looking at. So if you're looking at doing live streaming of your videos, folks, maybe and then pushing them to YouTube, Facebook, and wherever else you want to push it, go and have a look at it. So let's start off. Chris, have you got anything you want to recommend to the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, I'm kind of a design last type of person. So I'm trying to upgrade some of our design elements that go with our brand. And I did a logo competition on 99 Designs, which went out well for a refresh of Lifter LMS logo. But the thing I want to recommend today is called Design Pickle. I'm paying approximately $300 a month for unlimited graphic design request. And I'm using it a lot, getting good results. I enjoy working with it. And yeah, if you have a lot of just stuff that you need created for like Instagram or featured images or just marketing collateral, check out Design Pickle.
Yeah, put it in either chat or the Slack channel. Can you folks? What you think? John, what have you got anything you want to recommend, John?
Yeah, so I put in, it's a podcast by someone that you interviewed before, Jonathan Stark. And
there ain't many people I haven't interviewed, is there?
No, you've interviewed a few. And it's Jonathan Stark and Rochelle Moulton, and it's a podcast that I listen to occasionally. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts, but this is one that I pick up like every now and again called The Business of Authority. And a lot of what Jonathan talks about is just kind of mindset and just practicality with pricing. But this show is more about just taking your business from like a, you know, here to here. A lot of it has to do with the way that you approach things with mindset, but it's a lot of practical advice. It's not like woo-woo stuff. It's all deeply seated practical advice.
Yeah, and he's called Jonathan. All, you know, the people that you should listen to are called Jonathan, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely.
There we are. What's Sally? Sally, what do you think you want to share with the listeners and viewers?
Yes, my recommendation for this week is EM Client, a wildly originally named replacement for Outlook, which I've been getting increasingly fed up with Outlook, that is. And one of the things that's an advantage to me is that it will integrate with your Google Calendar and contacts, which Outlook does not want to talk to Google. And after my husband got an Android phone, we switched all our shared calendars from iCloud over to Google. And then I had to have like a second calendar app on my machine. And it's like, this is a pain. Plus it does, you know, unified inbox kinds of things, which Outlook still hasn't invented yet. And it's reasonably priced. It does work for both Windows and Mac. Just go to emclient.com. And I'm still in the process of setting it up. But yeah, the search folders are awesome and fast. I was trying to find the link, you know, just search for anything with WP-Tonic in it. Bam, there it is.
There we go. And I'm glad that you chose. You're searching for WP-Tonic. Very wise lady. There we go.
Well, I did need that link to get on the show this morning.
Yeah, there we go. Jonathan, got anything you want to talk about?
I've liked spinupwp.com. The big reason for me is like I've started building a lot more WordPress sites lately. I'll have an idea or something, and I don't like paying an additional fee per site. So I have a DigitalOcean droplet that I pay a small amount per month, and I'm just spinning up WordPress over and over again when I have a new idea for something. So still a big fan of like, and a couple of my bigger sites I have a dedicated like managed hosts, but the small ones, I like being able to spin it up.
I totally agree with you. Words of wisdom. Finally, Spencer, got anything you want to share with the listeners of yours?
Yes, I do, actually. In light of our conversation last week about what things you can listen to or watch, because God forbid they're all going away, Netflix has John and Yoko Above Us Only Sky. As a Beatles fan, this was a really great documentary of footage I've never seen, but it was a real nice in the background while I worked thing. So if you do have Netflix or you like John and Yoko or the Beatles, definitely worth a look.
That's great. So, Jonathan, how can people find out more about you and your thoughts and what you're up to?
JonathanWold.com. I got everything there. Link to the different projects, and I'm occasionally active on Twitter. Yeah, that's it.
And you get full marks, Jonathan. You look totally engaged and not fazed by the mayhem of this show. You get 5 stars. Normally at the end of it, the guests have a strange stare, actually. Sally, can people find out more about you, your thoughts, and what you're up to?
You can find my business at WPFangirl.com. And you can find me on Twitter as at Sally Getch, and you can find my cats on Instagram under the same handle.
Oh, that's great. I'll be watching. Chris, how can people find out more about you and what you're thinking?
You can find me on my podcast, which is called LMS Cast. And then you can also find me if you're looking for adding courses or memberships to your website at lifterlms.com. If you happen to be watching this live, today is the last day of our 20% off Teacher Appreciation Day sale. So you can get Lifter LMS for 20% off with coupon code Lifter Loves Teachers.
All right, there we go. John, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to? He's gone. Oh, he's got that look. Let's go over to Spencer. Spencer, how can people find out more about you and what you're up to?
I think he's frozen, not catatonic. I just have to apologize to all the children out there today for my very naughty, use of foul language and all the.
Well, that's me. That's saying something.
But I want to say the reason is because this show gets me so excited on Friday mornings that sometimes I just can't hold back. But more importantly,
I'm not going there. There's so many ways I can go there.
I'm trying intermittent fasting and keto diet, and I got to say, it's actually, ironically, seeming to work, but I just have to go in for conversion therapy to avoid the swearing that goes along with the high energy. Having said that, if you are looking for advice, free advice on marketing automation, WordPress membership sites, and so forth. In fact, if you go to WP Fusion and you press the big button over there, you'll actually get a free call with me, because I am more than happy to talk about your business, your pain point, what it is that you need to use in today's world to succeed. No obligation at all, just free advice, because obviously I like to talk, and I promise if you call, I will not swear at you.
All right, that's fine. Well, thanks, listeners and viewers. We'll be back next week with another great roundtable show. We've had a great discussion, a great panel, and hopefully we'll have another great discussion next week. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.